Criminality is a toxic street fighting Roblox game created by the developer ROBLOX. In this video, I want to delve into the behaviors of these people that play this game, hitting the target of every single group and their motives, effects, and most importantly, their causes, why they are the way that they are. This also doesn't exclude people such as ROBLOX, which I will cover later in this video. You may already assume the absolute basic, ranging from fatherless behavior to neglected to having insanely huge egos or just childish stupidity, but since I take psychology for A-levels or 12th grade for any non-UK people out there, I can define and possibly even diagnose some types of people that I mention in this video, not because of the simple fact that I do psychology in school, but because I literally have learnt these topics of fatherless behavior and erratic people. But remember, this is just a YouTube video made for entertainment. Don't take anything absolutely seriously, or do if you want, I don't really care. I'll split this video into 5 sections, this being the main genres of players / characters that you generally see inhabit the game. There's many subgenres that I could never get through the entire video with, but they'll at least be mentioned in the main categories that I proposed. For example, you'd find certain developers in the people of influence category, and you'd find closet cheaters in the general toxic players section. One final thing to say before the video really begins: no people will be mentioned for reasons to insult or slander them, and if I do mention anybody, it will be in good faith. Without further ado, let's get into the first section. I've included generic in the title on purpose. It's generic. There's a large amount that I can't really section properly, so I've been lazy and gone ahead and said generic. The best I could do though, lazily, is split it into 2 at least. Soft toxic players and hard, obviously, dipshit. Soft toxic players are, in my definition, players that just play the game normally, really. They play Criminality with no real competitiveness, and their toxic actions are usually directed at players that they meet in game, not predetermined meaning decided beforehand. The likelihood that they cheat is also very low due to the fact that they simply don't care enough to cheat, and would rather play the game for the reason to have fun. They want to have fun by crushing their opponents fairly. I know it's a bad start on the psychological part, but there's no real way I can define these people's personalities and their behaviors accurately, since they're relatively tame people that are toxic naturally because the game is that way. But if I was forced to think of a psychological approach, I would probably go with a psychodynamic, which in an extremely summed up way states that certain actions at early childhood heavily influence the way that someone will end up being. The same approach will be used in the next thing I talk about, so I might as well now as a good comparison. If you're generally taken care of, aka have good parents, then you'll find yourself respectful of others, have a balanced obedience to authority, and are disciplined yourself. There's separate reasons for all of these, but I'll only talk about them when it applies to the section I'm talking about, which is what I'm about to do in detail next. Hard toxic players are outright more interesting to analyze since they openly display a lot more erratic behavior ranging across the entire spectrum. These players are pretty much the opposite of soft toxic players, and they devote themselves into playing the game half the time not even for their own enjoyment, but as if they feel like they have to, and they do this for 2 reasons. They think that their entire personality depends on the game, and it is most certainly the only community online that they actively interact in and enjoy, have friends in, and talk. You can be like this, but you don't think that your entire personality is only on Criminality. That's why you don't end out as stupid looking and moronic like this. The second reason is because of their big throbbing piece of shit ego. Since they think their life revolves around Criminality, they naturally develop a massive ego about it. From their quote-unquote skill level to power in terms of influence to people or authority, there's a long list of amazingly stupid reasons, but I'll cover those 3 in specific. Criminality is quite a difficult game, and unfortunately it is quite easy to cheat in it because of the dogshit Roblox anti-cheat. Since these egotistical people would do anything to be better than others, they happily install and use cheats to gain any advantage they can. And since this game is quite toxic, it invites a lot of hard toxic players into the game, and that's the reason why you see so many high level people being banned these days. Most quiet and generally respectful high level players don't cheat, and people who are generally good at the game shut up and play. Egotistical people love influence over others, and I'll mention why later. When you apply this logic into Criminality's brain-dead hard toxic players, it's very easy to see why people become the way that they are. Quote-unquote gang leaders, which are basically the owners of these groups that go around and play the game in, groups. And a lot of blackmailing. And what do egotistical people love more than influence over others? Are influence over others with authority or influencers, in this case moderators, admins, developers, etc. This need is incredibly more stronger than the last, and because of this, they become obsessed with it, because they want to stand out, they want to be special. This is also why egotistical people love influence. It seems an easier path though to becoming an interest to a single person, aka an admin, than becoming an interest to so many people, for example like I am, and that's why so many people go this route if their mind is already corrupted on ego, fixated on a thing. I'll be using the psychodynamic approach again. If you were not fed well or neglected as a very young child, then the approach suggests that you become disobedient to authority, are negligent to other people's feelings, and are messy and generally rude. If you were treated well, then all of these should be the opposite. However, if you were treated but harshly, then you should be more shy and submissive to authority, more shy around others and less sociable in the real world. It's often that the harsh treatment and negligence clash, and these traits actually mix together. Online personalities add fuel to the fire, and are a perfect match for people who unfortunately had a childhood as described. You can chat all the shit you liked online, and would have no repercussions to it, until you do, which is when you start crying and being submissive, aka being a shy bitch in real life. In conclusion, it's pretty obvious which one is the worst out of the two subcategories. At the end of the day, you're responsible for your actions. Everybody is. Everybody that got treated harshly as a child isn't a piece of shit. You can't blame every bad thing you do to something you don't even remember until someone else has to bring it up to you. On top of this, the psychodynamic approach is actually quite controversial due to some of the things that the creator, Sigmund Freud, was known for. I wouldn't completely rely on the approach to explain the way that these retards are, but it doesn't take a genius to construct the idea that obsessed and idiotic morons have bad parental figures, or had. To avoid being like this, just don't hang out in the wrong crowd, get your priorities straight. This section features suggestive players that take part in deviant and abnormal behaviors because they project their abuse and restrictionless internet access to unfortunate victims. I personally have a strong distaste to these kind of people. To an extent, you can kind of pity toxic hard players, but there is no excuse for suggestive players. This is only because they are doing these actions on Roblox, a majorly children's platform. These people are spreading a literal disease. These people know when to stop, but these people actively choose not to. These people know how to get help, but they actively choose not to. Their behaviors are explainable, but doing it on a children's platform is not at all. There is literally zero margin of error for being like this, so just fuck off. The somewhat acceptable version of suggestive players derives from trauma. I am incredibly sorrowful for anybody who has experienced trauma of this sort, but I know and they know that they can get help, or at the very least help themselves, but they choose not to, and that's where the line is drawn. Defense mechanisms are an unconscious state of mind where your brain protects yourself from distressing, painful, or unpleasant thoughts and feelings. They can either push a desire or conflict out of conscious thought or transfer it onto something else. People of this kind use two of this demonstrated: projection and rationalism. Rationalism is explaining said actions so that they make sense. Therefore, they won't feel so bad about them. For example, if you broke up with somebody, then you may say that you didn't like them that much anyways. In this instance, you could say it's just a game or it's just role-playing when the thing that they're doing is much more severe. Projecting is when unacceptable thoughts are dealt with by saying that they are someone else's thoughts. This is so that they can deal with their own feelings. In this instance, they're either trauma/abuse/restrictionless internet access is what is being projected by these suggested people. A prime example, in my opinion, being furries. I have never met a furry in my entire life that has stayed a furry without knowing that they have some deep-rooted issues such as this. This is my hot take, but I think furries are a massive group of people that classify themselves as such so that they can do their disgusting ERP shit easier online. If you disagree with my point, then listen again. That has stayed a furry. If you actively stay as a furry, you are actively involving yourself with a community that is literally only known for having sexual based controversies. There is literally nothing good to gain from being a furry other than that ERP shit that I said. You become a furry and actively know that you'll be targeted and harassed for a very good reason. If you don't understand any of that, then let me put it like this. You're wearing a shirt that doesn't say kick me on the back of it, but it says shoot me in the chest, and you're also blindfolded. You take this blindfold off when you grow more mature, hopefully you should already be mature, and see your shirt and continue walking downtown, the worst part of Chicago. Anyways, enough about furries, back to suggestive players, or nothing really changed, lol. To be totally honest, I think I covered just about everything I wanted to say about this section when I was ranting about the furries, because the same thing applies to these genre of players, just not actively making themselves a target, which is incredibly stupid in my opinion. In conclusion, this Kita 2 DEFCON 2 type category, which although isn't a loud part of the community, is arguably worse as a whole than the entirety of toxicity that resides in criminality, and that says a lot. They're not a problem until they affect you, and until it's not your problem, these kind of people keep growing and invite victims every single day. The Crim team feel this way too, permanently banning and pretty much excommunicating any people that do participate in these kinds of activities because it truly is unacceptable. unacceptable. I don't think there's much more to say about this topic really, like how else do you want to evaluate predators and literal dangers to society? We don't. People of influence is probably one of the most interesting categories in the video by far. This section includes developers and content creators, and I have no doubt that this is what people are interested for, so let me dive into it quickly, starting with the devs. The developers slash admins of Criminality, I'm gonna just refer them to as Crim Team, are one of the most unique I've ever come across on my time online. Most of them are very smart, quiet, and get on and just do their job, or at least one of the three. Many people would say though that some of the higher ranked people of the Criminality team are egotistical and have some sort of god complex slash power trip. I now want to ask those people this. Are they having a power trip if they are in absolute power of people that shit talk them usually? Are they having a god complex if they're displaying god complex like behaviors to people that literally treat them like gods? Now, I couldn't answer that question for you because it's up to you to decide. But for most people that think they know them personally, they'd say yes. Anyone who involves themselves in the Criminality community and doesn't know them personally to even the slightest extent would say yes. Also, disclaimer, when I talk about the Crim team, I don't mean all of them, but some of them definitely be tweaking from time to time, bro. In their defense, if I made Criminality or was a major contributor to it, then I would also view people that slander the game and then continue to play it repeatedly as mere peasants. You must also add the constant attacks and threats and annoyance and pain that they've put up with the community while also being the sole providers for them via updates, so they must be mentally strong without a doubt. In a way, I can almost relate, but I truly don't know how they feel, so yeah. There is no real psychological defining that I can put on this that I have personally learned at school, but I think there definitely is maybe the mindset of one who is in control of power I don't know too well. I guess you could say they're not treating everybody with the utmost respect 24/7, and they should be because they know better, but listen, okay, who the hell is gonna do that in a disgusting community like this? And in a way, they are treating a majority of these people with respect, they simply just don't interact with them. And I'm pretty sure it's better to be ignored than to be hurled with insults on why you're stupid. But at the end of the day, they should listen sometimes to some of the community since they are the best feedback, although the worst too. It's just incredibly unfortunate that they themselves have to personally filter between the two, which takes their unnecessary effort and would rather just shut up and just update the game and make money. And I think some good people have been on the unfortunate end of some of these developers, which makes a snowball effect of people that hurl insults at the game plus the devs. But it's almost as if it's like a cycle of life, because what can they actually do to stop this? Listen to the community? Risk yourself getting into stupid drama for no good reason? Waste your time talking to idiots? You may compare to other game developers and communities, but that's the first mistake you do. You compare to another community that isn't based off literal frothing toxic filth. Content creators or just general people of influence also face similar conditions, especially the ones that really interact with the community. You start literally feeling the effects of the shithole. These people deal with a lot more people every day than the average person, they get more highs and hellos and questions and interactions than a normal person, and if it's in the Criminality community, then expect even more malicious interactions as well. I've already explained the motives of these people. I'd say most content creators are of the soft toxic variant, where they're genuinely normal people that seem abnormal to others purely because they stand out. And the more someone stands out, the more you know about them that distinguishes them from someone you don't know at all. But since you barely have actually talked to this influencer, you feel like you have no connection although you know stuff about that. Doesn't that sound a little bit weird? I feel like I'm going off on a tangent, but yeah, there's no real category to put these people. It can literally be anything, ranging from hard toxic players to literal exploiters. However, the last section of this video will kind of help you understand these people more, hopefully. There is no evaluation that I can put on this because I'm pretty much going to cover it all in the next section as it relates to these people, so enjoy. The first thing I want to do is define an NPC. Sorry bro, I just need a stretch, I'm so tired. The first thing I want to do is define an NPC. An NPC is by no means someone that is necessarily bad, nor is it a group of people that can be actively labeled, because in reality, everyone is an NPC to somebody. But this category will cover almost the majority of the community that don't talk at all, simply react and go on with the day, or people that simply consume media within the community and then voice an unbalanced opinion, unfortunately, because they can't be bothered to find the other side of the argument and they open their mouth too much. Everybody is a victim to media, so maybe even you can learn something in this section. A lot of people in this community are immature, as not that they cry and shit and piss like a child, but I'm saying they're more of a relatively younger age than adult teens, etc. This means that they're literally not even matured and developed their brains enough to digest and process about 70% of information and media that's being given to them so much these days. Even more mature people in this community still find a way to get stuck up around rumors and rubbish thrown at them because of their laziness of not bothering to think about a situation as a whole, and to be honest, that's fair. I wouldn't either. But these people are trying to relax, not delve into a story like a fucking news reporter. Unfortunately, since the developers don't really care about their image until it really affects them, i.e. people of importance notify so and so, they really put out absolutely nothing when it comes to kids falsely accusing and pretty much spreading misinformation because no one's stopping them. And so when you type up criminality and not see that much content being put out because the game is harsh and unwelcome to creators, you start to dig a bit, and it doesn't take long to find some kind of fraud scandal video to pop out. Your average 13-year-old is gonna look at the video and be like, wow, the devs are pretty messed up and bad people, I hate them, and then most likely move on with the day. This repeats a lot until pretty much the entire community's mindset is secretly like this. They hate to admit it, but because the Crim team puts up no effort to defend themselves, they pretty much are resorted to believing this. Hell, you can literally put up a video that states complete and utter shit that makes zero sense about the Crim team, and there are still gonna be at least 1,000 responding people that will happily accept and believe what they see. And that's responding, not even people that merely skim the video. So maybe the devs shouldn't be like, hey guys, you guys are so ungrateful, shitty fuck, and realize why they get shit on every update for no reason, because it's not directly their fault, but to a very minor and very indirect extent, their fault. For the last psychological explanation of this video, I'm gonna choose the behaviorist approach, more specifically classical conditioning. Let me give you a quick example of one. Food is an unconditioned stimulus. A dog looks at the food and salivates, which is an unconditioned response. A bell is a neutral stimulus and the dog does not respond when it's rung. However, if you combine the bell and the food together, the dog salivates eventually after practice, which is the conditioned response. So basically, the bell would trigger a response for the dog to start salivating even if there's no food. In this case, false bans, which are a common occurring misconception in the community, is an unconditioned stimulus. Most of the community look at it and assume it's corruption within the Crim team. The misinformation is a neutral stimulus, the community looks at it and does nothing. However, if you combine the false bans and the misinformation together, the general assumes corruption throughout all. This is not a very great example, but there's nothing I can really pinpoint, so I've gone and made some kind of rough example. That's pretty much it for this long ass video, and it was quite a pain to script out and write because obviously I had to do some research, and it gives me a bunch of respect for YouTubers that do this shit constantly. Anyways, back to the topic. I hope this video was relatively interesting. It should have been if you got to the end, because this is long as hell. This video pretty much explained the obvious, but I made it because I found the psychological aspect of it pretty interesting, and since I'm doing psychology in college, which I probably said about 30 times, I was like, you know what, why not? I'd appreciate it if you liked and subscribed, it would mean a lot, and talk to me in the comments. Did you disagree with anything? Are you a psychology major and thought I was just waffling? Let me know. Anyways, that's enough. I'm tired.